Rate my cult, Cantelmoism.
Chris Cantelmo here, and I'm not going to go away. I'm going to keep saying this. And I'm going to be the most famous person in the history of humanity. Now that I have your attention, do DMT.
DMT is a psychedelic drug that occurs naturally in plants and animals, including humans. Now, it is a Schedule I drug in the United States, which means you're not supposed to have it. Now, DMT in the form of ayahuasca tea is legal for use in religious ceremonies. Now, you may know it as the DMT Reddit cult, but it's actually called Cantelmoism. It's a fledgling new religious movement. It's centered around its founder, Chris Cantelmo. It did pop off on Reddit, and that's probably where you heard about it. But really, it exists across the web. Now, Chris Cantelmo was born in 1962 in New York in the United States, and he died in California by suicide, unfortunately, in 2019. The religion mainly spread around Reddit, but there are websites there's YouTube. He had a Twitter account. He was around the blogosphere. Now, according to Chris Cantelmo, he was hounded off Reddit by haters. We'll go into that. Now, Cantelmoism preaches the benefits of DMT use and that Chris Cantelmo, the founder, is the perfect person to tell the world about DMT due to his academic and professional credentials. So Chris Cantelmo felt that he was the perfect person to tell the world about DMT due to his academic and professional credentials, even though he was not the first person to tell the world about DMT. Regardless, a brief history of Cantelmoism. It's named for its leader, who apparently had a midlife crisis and decided to try DMT. He was so amazed by what he saw that he decided to spread the word. He decided that he must spread the message to the whole world. He took to Reddit, where he burst onto the scene by buying fellow users things like gildings and Reddit gold. These are like tips. If you're not really on Reddit, these are like tips. He made these wild claims. He claimed that DMT cured his cancer and that he was appointed by these alien creatures to spread this message. However, many people didn't really believe his cancer claims. It's a big claim, especially if you have cancer. And as skeptics started to really question his statements, Chris's story fell apart. He also had let's call it an aggressive manner that really grated on people. Now, eventually, he was kicked off of numerous Reddit boards, Reddit subreddits, they call it, and his attempt to win followers ultimately failed. He ended up committing suicide in November of 2019. Now, looking at his website, I suspect that his suicide was an attempt to martyr himself, which it's like, can you give yourself a nickname? No, someone else has to do it. So I don't know if you can really martyr yourself, but that's kind of nitpicking. Now, why is it called a cult? Now, I gotta admit, Cantelmoism might just be a potential cult, not a full-fledged cult. Like, to me, it's a cult startup, and we know that most startups fail. So Reddit users, Reddit critics cite reasons for calling it a cult. They say it had a charismatic leader, a bizarre doctrine, and that it shames its followers into complying. Well, congrats, you just described every church in the country. Critics have set up a subreddit called R Cantelmoism Exposed. Now, whether or not Cantelmoism is ultimately a cult, it's up for you to decide, because I'm kind of on the fence. Is an attempted cult a cult? Like an attempted murder is still a crime? Or is it nothing at all? The story of Cantelmoism really is the story of Chris Cantelmo. Now, Chris Cantelmo would be the first guy to tell you he is the smartest one in the room.
Some of you may know me as Chris Cantelmo, Yale biochemist extraordinaire.
If you watch any of his videos, he mentions it at least twice, how smart he is. Did you know I was high school valedictorian and I graduated top of my class from Yale? Like, yeah, you've mentioned it many times. Kind of throws his intelligence in your face to make you say or think, why should I even question this man? He was a president of this thing called GL Sciences, where he made all of his money. This is why he had so much to spend. Now, Chris Cantelmo had this idyllic middle-class upbringing in the suburbs of New York. He had been married and had 2 sons, but by the time he started his religion, he was in his 60s and he was divorced. He seemed to have a thing for porn stars.
Porn stars are the jewel of our society. They're wonderful people. They gave of themselves. A lot of times when they had nothing, and they were being put down by everyone around them, they gave of themselves for your viewing pleasure. And I say, let's step up and give porn stars what they deserve, which is just our admiration. They've been through a lot. They're beautiful people. Let's love them.
He's constantly defending them in videos and supporting them on Twitter. But you know what? Jesus lived 2,000 years ago. We don't know what his Twitter likes would have been. So just keep that in mind. Just because a dude has something for porn stars doesn't mean he's not the Messiah. Now, before DMT, Chris Cantelmo was a terribly unhappy man. He drank every day and he used Xanax. By January of 2018, he had tried to commit suicide 3 times already. Now, at this point, he was institutionalized. And while he was inside, he got the message from on high to try DMT, which he claims saved him. And he was told via cosmic messenger that he had a brain tumor. This story is documented in the Digital Fireside podcast, episode 8. He said that the DMT cured his cancer, that the DMT allowed him to quit alcohol and Xanax. Don't think that DMT is some kind of cure-all. Cantelmo ended up committing suicide just a little while later, so...
But if anyone thinks that I'm somehow mentally ill or anything, well, you're just wrong.
So if anything, DMT offered Chris a brief respite from his absolute craziness, his mental illness. Now, after his epiphany, Cantelmo went on a mission to proselytize the benefits of DMT to anyone he would listen. He mainly did this through Reddit, by gilding members who commented on his posts or who made memes that he liked. He really liked memes. And you're like, well, he gave all these Reddit points away. He was so nice. Why don't people like him? Well, there was a lot of drama attached to Chris Cantelmo. Now, he came onto the scene with great promises of what DMT could do for people. It was supposed to be a panacea for all mental and spiritual illnesses, all problems, including brain cancer. Cantelmo claimed that DMT cured his cancer. But look at this comment here. This is from a Reddit Ask Me Anything. I am Chris Cantelmo. I discovered DMT cures cancer and explains schizophrenia. Now, this is from someone who actually has cancer. Ugh. They say, please don't do that. Tell people that DMT cures cancer. It does not. If it did, I would be cancer-free right now. Now, years later, Chris Cantelmo revealed that he didn't have cancer so much as atheism. Atheism was his cancer.
Before anyone wants to do an expose on me about cancer, I never had brain cancer. As far as I know, I've never had any form of cancer. But I do believe that DMT will cure, it will cure all your diseases. I know that for a fact. I had the worst form of cancer. Atheism, and DMT cured that.
It was just a metaphor. But you know what group doesn't feel that cancer is a metaphor? People with cancer. So, also, another problem is Chris Cantelmo targeted teens. He targeted teens, and people accused him of being a predator. And he was banned off the subreddit r/teens for his aggressive recruiting tactics. Now, just because he went after teens doesn't mean he was a sexual predator. There are many kinds of predators. You could be a spiritual predator, too. The military goes after 18-year-olds because they're easy to mold. They're like putty. Also, according to Chris Cantelmo, kids are smarter than adults. Plus, he liked memes. So he went directly to Reddit, directly to the kids. But let's read a little excerpt from what a former follower of his had to say about him. They say, in my early days of Reddit, a post I made got gilded. Not knowing what this was exactly, I was looking at the posts of people being gilded a lot and stumbled upon u/Chris CGC. I initially came to his account in order to be gilded, but boy, did I fall into a rabbit hole. It ends with him saying, a lot of people said that he was some sort of cult leader and everyone hailed him like God. That's all false. Everyone called him God or Jesus because it was a running joke that he was some sort of holy figure because he gilded so much. People agreed with his theories in the comments to get their comments gilded. Knowing him personally, he was perfectly sane and normal, just adamant about DMT curing cancer, as when he started smoking it, his brain cancer went away. We know that's not true. He was not in any way a cult leader. He had a lot of land on which he had a farm, not somewhere he kept his cult followers. He called people names and sent death threats because he was pissed off at people who disagreed with him after he spent $70,000 trying to get people to listen. Cantelmoism was merely a place that people such as me went to get gilded and pretended to agree with his BS theories in exchange for premium. So why does this matter? There are a lot of cult startups that don't really get off the ground. Why does Cantelmoism even matter? Well, it has some unique aspects, particularly in the branding. We have a private citizen here who is able to use Reddit to directly target direct advertising to potential followers. And these were with bribes. He bribed them a little. Now, it didn't work, but it may have if he hadn't been so abrasive, if he had a better people skills. Also, Cantelmo spread the word about DMT, a powerful psychedelic that is uniquely suited to the American public. It's fast acting, it's safe, and most people can extract it themselves at home with minimal training. You don't have to go to Yale. Now, here's one thing. I could not really pin it down to how many followers he had. He was banned from our DMT, so he started our new DMT, which has about 858 subs or members, but no one's posted in 2 years. There's a private subreddit, but I don't have permission to follow that, so I can't tell you how many active users he still has. Now that you know the basics, how does Cantelmoism stack up against other cults? Drum roll, please. Okay, rating. We start with Doctrine and Beliefs. It's actually pretty high. Cantamoism has 28 commandments called discoveries, which Chris posted on his website. Some of them are pretty standard, new age, Christian-leaning fare. A few are simply taking up space, don't need to be there, can be combined with others. We're going to go through them, and we'll see where you fall. 1, there is a God. 2, God emits a frequency through electromagnetic waves. DMT allows humans to pick up on this frequency. Now, Joe Rogan has been talking about this for years. 4, instinctual behavior in animals results from the behavioral instructions delivered to each organism via the cosmic broadcast. Imagine that each species has its own decryption key. So it interprets the cosmic data set according to its own specific behavioral needs. That's his grammar, not mine. I suppose this is our programming, like how animals are programmed in video games. Could the signals get crossed and some of us humans believe we're fish? Who knows? 5, aliens are present on Earth and they want to help us prevent environmental disasters. Okay, quote, aliens have demanded Chris to deliver the aliens' message. Stop polluting and warmongering and overpopulating, or we will unleash an unstoppable plague and lethal worldwide epidemic. Giant Asteroid 2024. Number 6 is a bold claim. Einstein's energy equation needs to be updated to read E equals 4 over 3 pi mc3. Punctuation, what are we talking about here? I really don't think you can back that one up either. You need a lot of information to back that one up. Okay, 7. The second law of thermodynamics is wrong. That's the law of entropy, that the universe constantly tends toward disorder and chaos. Chris Cantelmo says the universe is getting increasingly organized and energetic, and its end state is already determined as a super complex wonder world. Okay. 8. Free will in humans is an illusion, and the end state of every living thing follows suit. The consequences of this fact is anxiety should evaporate, since our individual actions are irrelevant to the final outcome at all times. People should do the most enjoyable thing at every waking moment. All right, I don't endorse this. We here at Maya Muses feel that this philosophy is and only good to absolve the user of any responsibility. Users should take care to listen to their conscience and instincts, and at all times to make peace with the fact that we live in a chaotic universe. So do your best, do your best, do your best. Okay, 9. The nervous system of all living creatures is both a computer, an information processing system, and an antenna, which both broadcasts and receives electromagnetic waves in exactly the same way as a PC or Mac contains a CPU and a Wi-Fi circuit. It's funny how whenever we get a new technology, that new technology explains the universe, but whatever. The DMT enables the Wi-Fi and increases the clock speed of the bio-CPU by quantum orders of magnitude above default mode of normal adult human brain function. 10. There is a DMT cycle in mammals in which DMT and sex hormones are inversely proportioned. The higher the level of sex hormones, the lesser the quantity of DMT produced by the pineal gland in the brain. DMT production is stopped altogether in humans at puberty and reinitiated late in adulthood. So basically here, what he is saying is that children have a natural release of DMT, and that when we hit puberty, that kind of halts. Also, continued sex hormone therapy, like older men who take testosterone, that inhibits the production of DMT or keeps it from restarting. Now, I came online pretty early, and I have a fantastic memory of my childhood, and I've also, taken a fair share of DMT. The two are not the same. They are not the same, but that's personal experience here. But all of this is his personal experience, so whatever. Number 11, the mental health syndromes called schizophrenia and autism are one and the same and result from a relative overabundance of bioavailable DMT. From here on, these syndromes can be unified as autophrenia. Autophrenics are geniuses and were created by God to be leaders of humanity, and lesser, normal adults were too stupid to see this in modern times. In ancient times, autophrenics were rulers. Not literally rulers, because Caesar was neither autistic nor schizophrenic. The Egyptian pharaohs were born into power, as were many great rulers. The king's son became the king. Okay. If he's referring to tribal shamans in prehistoric times, I can't really disprove him, but neither can he prove this as the truth. Now, 12 and 13 claim that Shakespeare, Da Vinci, Galileo, and Moses were all autophrenics. Okay, so they can be religious leaders and artists. Religious leaders and artists may have different brain chemistry, but we also don't know that for a fact. Also, I'm just going to say this. I don't think the problem of modern times is that there aren't enough schizophrenics and autistic people in positions of power and influence. Okay, the ruling class is half mentally ill, and it's really become a problem. So, I'm just going to say that one hasn't panned out. Okay, 14. Our modern industrialized world, particularly fluoridation of our water supplies and being told not to stare at the sun, has resulted in calcification of our pineal gland and an interruption of the natural DMT cycle. Staring at the sun and drinking deionized water rejuvenates pineal function. So you'll recognize the fluoride anxiety from the general blogosphere. A lot of people are against fluoride. To each his own. His solution of staring at the sun is certainly a hot take. Hot on your retinas, that is. Also, I've seen a lot of things online that promise to restore pineal function. First, they tell me that there is a problem with my pineal function, and then they offer me the solution. How convenient. I should be so grateful. Anyway, fine. Deionized water. Okay, 15. Moving on to 15. Adding DMT to an adult brain via orally active ayahuasca or vaping DMT crystals allows people to see spirits, which are always around us, but otherwise invisible, including a magnitude of guardian angels voluntarily assigned to each of us. Hey, maybe, but we don't really know that. Whatever you do see when you're under DMT is what you see. We just don't know if it's real or not. And we don't want to make any broad leaps into that. It's certainly not something you should get worked up about or adjust your entire life to, beyond this feeling of universal love and self-acceptance. But there are many ways to form a relationship with the metaphysical if you desire to have one, and they don't all involve DMT. In fact, until very recently, until this craze, very few of these ways has involved DMT. Think about it. All those people who saw Jesus in the pancake, they did that without DMT. Okay, moving on. I proved my point. 16. A near-death experience occurs when the CO2 levels in the brain get so high that the pineal gland releases what it believes is the final dose of DMT into the brain, which is meant to enable our souls to be delivered back to God. He does not capitalize God, so that's very interesting. This is why almost all near-death experienced people report seeing angels and aliens. Now, I was introduced to this theory through the Spirit Molecule documentary. That documentary was released in 2010. So this is certainly not unique to Cantelmoism. Now, 17 and 18 are alternate ways to get DMT. It's compressed air when you go scuba diving and laughing gas. Good reason to go to the dentist. 19. DMT has allowed Chris Cantamel to unify the four fundamental forces of physics into one force: electromagnetism, EM, the weak nuclear force, the strong nuclear force, and gravity are all manifestations of EM, electromagnetism over distance. The only reason the notion of multiple forces originated is because gravity and its effects was clearly understood by everyone. When electricity was discovered, later it was assumed to be a separate force. A look at the force equations for for electromagnetism and gravitation show that they are identical. Now, this is a very bold claim, like the new relativity. I'd have to see proofs and then have a physicist walk me through it. Also, I need to see experiments. One can't just say things like this, make these massive claims in science without any evidence to back it up. 20. There is no such thing as gravity waves, and the LIGO detectors detect tectonic plate movements, not gravitation. Kip Thorne, Nobel Prize winner for his LIGO project, is an uber genius, but was led astray by the notion that gravity is a separate force. Now, I've seen numerous critiques of gravity going around the blogosphere, just online. People say gravity isn't real. Now, this seems to be muddled. Gravity waves and gravitational waves are not the exact same. I don't want to go into it, but gravitational waves were supposedly emitted when there were major cosmic events, way back in the universe, like supernova. And they set these ripples out through the universe, which this LIGO detector is supposedly picking up. Now, Einstein predicted this with general relativity. That's what the LIGO project was supposed to detect. Gravity waves are different. Gravity waves, he said gravity waves, are a way of restoring gravitational equilibrium to a system. So the tides are an example of gravity waves. One, this is a reiteration of his critique of electromagnetism being the only force in the universe. Okay. So, but this also seems to strike me as semantics because the tides are real. The gravitational constant is real. Jump out of a window, you're going to hit the ground. I don't understand what he's really trying to say with this, if it's true, if he has the sources to back it up, and he could combine it with 19. Okay, 21. Modern medicine and vaccines only make our immune systems weaker and are the source of all human suffering. All human suffering? What about war? I don't know about that. God gave us all the immunity we need, and medical intervention should only be undertaken in life-threatening emergencies. Vaccines are the problem, not the solution. Now, this may have seemed fringe in 2019 when he died, but a lot more people have taken this position in the meantime because of thanks, COVID. It's another thing we have to deal with now. This is fine. I can't really argue with people who say that pharmaceutical intervention is more harmful than good for most people. It's no longer a fringe belief, and that's due to the repeated failures and deception of the pharmaceutical industry. Plus, there are a lot of drug side effects. So, a great drug for one person could be the death of another person. So, here we go. 22. A direct experience of God is vital and essential. All religions are formed after a charismatic human has God revealed through an experience with DMT. Religions fail by claiming exclusivity to the divine. Religion is a source of evil as certain as it is a force for enlightenment. I actually agree with him here, but I see how Chris Cantelmo contradicts this by claiming to be the Messiah. Nevertheless, it's a good point. So says the Messiah.
The king has arrived. Chris Cantelmo. Humanity's king has arrived, and it's me.
Anyway, 23. Money is the ultimate source of evil and results from greed. Money allows people the luxury of treating others poorly. When money is eliminated, peace will be restored to the earth. This I do not agree with, because we choose what we do with money. Money ultimately reveals who we really are. So we are the source of all evil. Money just facilitates it. And if money goes away, it will probably mean the collapse of organized society. And then I agree that peace may be restored to the earth, but then only temporarily until we rebuild society and it comes back. 24. Darwin's natural selection occurs at the species group level, not the individual level, and this explains altruism, heretofore a mystery to evolutionary biologists and psychiatrists. I don't know if this is a great mystery. This is called the group selection theory of evolution. It says that groups that take care of each other go farther than selfish groups, or groups where individual members are selfish. Now, although this theory is not unique or original to Cantelmoism, it seems true to me. It's certainly plausible, at the very least, but to me it seems very true. 25. Freud and Jung were well-meaning but wrong. The subconscious does not exist. Dreams foreshadow future events, and when that future event happens, we feel a déjà vu. Hey, why not? 26. When matter is created by condensing light waves into particles, matter stays with us into the present, and antimatter recedes into the past. Matter and antimatter are reunited at the end of the universe. Now, this is another very bold physics claim that he is making. We know that electrons can act both as particles and as waves, and from that we can philosophize quite a lot. It's been the basis of much of the New Age teachings, much of the New Age religious beliefs. Now, you can't really prove this right or wrong until the end of the universe, so I'll just go ahead and give it to him. Sure, why not? I'm not going to fight it. 27. If Chris Cantelmo isn't the second coming, is anyone capable of so being? No guy, but also literally everybody. This is the ego. He had quite a large ego. Now, 28 is just about the Grateful Dead. I could have taken that off the list. As far as these discoveries go, very few of them are unique to Cantelmoism or Chris Cantelmo. He didn't really discover them. And I'll need to see a lot more evidence of the ones he claimed to discover, such as his revision to special relativity and his combining all the forces of the universe into electromagnetism. Bold claims. This kind of turned a lot of people off too, because they were like, your math doesn't really add up, and I'm not seeing any math here. Now, we could have edited those 28 down to about 10 for the sake of brevity. And he's really going out on a ledge with these physics things, and you'd hate for the physics to be proven wrong, which I'm sure could be easily proven wrong. And then the whole theory is thrown out. But of course, why shouldn't it be? Overall, this is not a bad belief system, especially for our modern world. Group selection is a solid theory as far as I'm concerned, and it really backs up why we should love our brothers and sisters. It's a lot more informal the way that Jesus put it in the Bible, but this is like an updated version. This is like 2.0. He's the new Messiah after all. I kid. He committed suicide, so I'll be nice about it. Okay. Rituals and practices. Now, this is actually medium to high. Cantelmoism encourages its participants to do DMT. Now, this is great because DMT users, they all see these similar fractal patterns, which fits very well with our modern thinking, the chaos theory and so forth. I actually put something on the screen that is similar to what DMT users see. Now, large doses of DMT allow us to break through our 3D world and visit other dimensions, supposedly. Or maybe it lets us dream while we're awake. We don't really know. I do know a former atheist who is now an agnostic / believer, a believer in something, we don't know what, after using DMT. So yes, DMT may cure your atheism. But his other practices include staring at the sun. Doctors don't recommend we stare at the sun. So I'm not really going to test this practice. So I can't really tell you if it works or if it doesn't, because I'm not about to stare at the sun. Okay, moving on to brainwashing techniques. This is a low score for him, okay? He bought his followers Reddit Gold and gilded them, all these prizes or whatever on Reddit, but he wasn't really the heavy-handed type. This is why I don't buy his detractors' claims that he was trying to start this cult, because he wasn't really trying to control his followers. Maybe it was cult-like, but he didn't coerce anyone that I can see. In fact, he doesn't even like his followers. He doesn't even like them. He's talking about them all the time. Now, Cantelmo did fake his suicide one time to scare his followers, but then later he did kill himself as emotional blackmail to future followers. But this was also like his 4th attempt at suicide, so maybe the DMT and religious path just delayed the inevitable. Still, this is a very good use of suicide to control other people. Take note, psychopaths. Now, moving on to quality of the followers, and this is actually very, very low. Now, their quality as people, as humans, seems pretty high, seems decent enough, but if you're not willing to die for your leader, not willing to castrate yourself, or at least move away from home, what good are you? Let's be honest. Okay, the Fellowship of Friends, they built their leader a wine empire. What does Chris Cantelmo have to show for all of his efforts? He spent like $100,000 to market his religion, and what for? What for? He has nothing to show for it. He's also dead. He's a psycho. It's not the sanest person, okay? Even Chris Cantelmo would say he didn't have much use for his followers. I don't know if you could say he even had followers by the end. He seems to have alienated all of them.
So you can have your little Discord, and I watched it. It was really pathetic. I would go in there and I would create new ideas and I would create momentum. And I would leave, and you guys would all kiss my ass when I would go there. Oh, great Chris, what a God, blah, 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 blah. Then I would leave and you would start talking about video games.
He seems mad and bitter that he's invested in them and that the investments didn't pay off. Now, many of them were these modern American teenagers. And the one thing we know about modern American teenagers is that they are useless. Useless. Can't depend on them for anything. Now, I've been to the Discord server and I can tell you he's absolutely right. These people are terrible. You can't make any sense of this server. It's no wonder why he couldn't get a cult off the ground with these people. Okay, moving on to Charismatic Leader. This is Medium. Now, I wonder how much of his I am the king rhetoric on Reddit is actually legit or if it's a character. He's trying to troll people. Let's read one of his comment threads. This is from a Reddit comment. Someone told him, please take care of yourself. I mean that sincerely. And Chris responded, please do not give uninformed advice. You know not what you speak. You have no idea what psychedelics are or what DMT enables. Study my writings. You have literally nothing better to do, I assure you. I've explained solutions to every single thing you've ever wondered about. You will be dumbfounded and awed by the breadth of my knowledge and the sheer volume of my comments and posts here. I am not kidding. The king has arrived. It's me. Now, if legit, he contradicts his own teaching by claiming exclusivity to the divine. Maybe he should say something like, I am a duke instead of I am king, because there are a couple of dukes, but there's only one king. So this contradicts one of his discoveries. Now, he weaponized DMT and his intelligence. He expected people to follow him because he was smarter and therefore better than them.
I was valedictorian in my high school class. Had straight A's all through everything. Went to Yale. Have a degree in molecular biophysics and biochemistry.
The impulse to start a religion with him is interesting because he was a scientist and his demographic isn't really the Messiah type. They're not the religious type. You got to approach them differently. However, I'm going to give him an A for effort because suicide in the desert, look, that can't be easy. That's a lot more of an investment than a lot of these cult leaders have put in. So A for effort. Now, Chris Cantelmo considered himself the Messiah. He says things that he will be the most famous person in the history of humanity, that he will give humankind freedom, and that humanity's king has arrived. People who don't agree and don't believe it can go f*** themselves.
You don't want to do it, f*** off. You want to call me a liar, f*** off. It doesn't matter. Go f*** yourself.
Go f*** yourself. So saith the Lord. It's in the red letter Bible, don't you know? A lot of you haven't even read the Bible. It's sad. Now, Chris Cantelmo called himself insanely competitive. Could it be that he couldn't bear not being the Messiah? If there is to be a Messiah, shouldn't it be him? Here we see the problem of religions that need a human center. It's hard for people, it's hard for new followers, it's hard for anyone not to claim that it should be them. People are, selfish, narcissistic. Why shouldn't it be me? What's wrong with me? We see this in many influencers and many cult leaders. It's kind of a personality type. And it's a trait that a lot of us share, apparently. We're learning new things every day, especially how many influencers actually want to be the Messiah. And also, how many followers want to follow a new Messiah. It's amazing. It's like entertainment. It's in real time. Anyway, overall, what is the rating? How does this cult stack up? Okay, we got 2.5 goat heads out of 5. It's mid. It's not a bad personal philosophy, and I'd really like to sit next to him at a dinner party, but is it really cult-worthy? Now, also keep in mind that the worse a cult's rating, the less of a threat they are to the world. So it's actually good that Cantelmoism has such a mid score. Also, you remember that we have a binary ranking for cults that are not Christian-based. So, is Cantelmoism better or worse than the standard American culture, or SAC, as we call it? It is better. It is better because Chris Cantelmo had to hike to kill himself. And good luck getting most Americans to voluntarily do any physical activity. Plus, Cantelmoism is based on something deeper than race and consumerism, which are our national obsessions. So, good. Better. Sure, fine. Anyway, the major takeaways from this cult. Remember, all ideas and practices can be weaponized, especially at the hands of the ego, which Chris had plenty of. Beware the ego. Also, everyone wants to be the Messiah. You are not the Messiah. And if you really think you are, shh, don't tell anybody. Stay quiet about it. It's probably some kind of mental illness, one. And if somehow it is true and you are the Messiah, the life of the Messiah is not a happy one, okay? Why do so many people want to be the chosen one? Why is it so painful to be a simple human, even though being a simple human is one of the greatest things that we can be? I don't understand it. Also, knowledge can be very dangerous, especially if you think you have some kind of exclusive knowledge that makes you better than other people. Keep it to yourself and run it past your maker when the game is all over. That's your game plan. Anyway, subscribe.